To all of you curious listeners trying to find any Minot sports information, I just want to say congratulations because you found it. You are in the right spot indeed, and I hope you enjoy your stay. From the KMSU studios at the college straight towards your wonderfully gifted devices, may I introduce the final episode of the 2020 Summer Series. And when you think of Summer Series, that should also prompt you to think that you are listening to the Minot Sports Podcast. Happy Saturday. I'm doing this on a Saturday, so happy Saturday, Minot Sports fans. I know this is the Summer Series, but we still have sports that are in full swing, coming at you fast, and most commonly, the North Dakota High School Activities Association granting us, I shouldn't say us, the high school athletes, well, I guess if you want to look at it from a fan perspective, I guess you could say that, but this is a big win for the coaches, the athletes, the parents, the fans. We do have sports, and mostly in particular, fall athletics for Minot High, our Redeemers, Bishop Ryan. Unfortunately, we cannot say the same thing for Minot State athletics, but it's something we'll have to endure, something we'll have to deal with, and maybe, just maybe, we could get some good news coming out in the spring. But yes, this may be a Summer Series episode, but we'll be talking a little bit of fall sports too for your local high school teams and athletes. But there's still some chatter about the South Valley SaberDogs, still yet a summer sports team. So we will get to them in a second here. But first, once again, guys, welcome to the Minot Sports Podcast. I am your host, Cole Clementich. Let's get started. Being this is a summer series show, it would be incomplete if we didn't talk about summer sports. Just recently, for the South Valley SaberDogs, finishing off their part of the Expedition League season, and sadly, they did not make it to the postseason, or in other words, what would have been in the Expedition League Championship Series for them. Coach Brock, as you heard earlier, still very proud of the team. Corey Thompson had to leave early, I'm guessing. Don't want to speculate too much into that. But what is something we can take away from this SaberDogs team, even though we had a whole bunch of guys come and go? You might have heard it earlier in the season that the rule is that each of these Expedition League teams, they rent the players from colleges everywhere. Some limited to D1. You can mostly grab some D2s and D3 guys in there. Of course, I may need to do a little more research on that. But looking at what the SaberDogs did and having to play meaningful baseball up until really mid to late August, the fact that they were still in it for the last home stretch goes to show you the resiliency, the character, and just how much this team performed throughout the season. Yes, we are bummed that it had to be the division rival Badlands Big Sticks out at Astoria Field in Dickinson. But look at it this way. The Dogs, they proved they can not only compete with the Big Sticks, but also even hand it to them. But that doesn't come without seeing extra innings, 1-run games, 2-run games. None of these division matchups with the Big Sticks, they weren't barn burners. These were legit competitive matchups that just absolutely made for such great entertainment for the fans, for the players, trying to concentrate so hard, focus. These division matchups, they were a treat. And yes, The Dogs managed to win some big ones against the big sticks, but it was when they weren't facing them, and maybe just the timely matchups that were key that the Dogs needed, just the big sticks had the slight edge. I found my way to the Expedition League standings for the 2020 season, and the expectation that this would be a tight playoff race, well, let's just say that not only was it fulfilled, it was close. I mean, you could have made a case where if Hastings, the Sodbusters, were in the Lewis division, they finished with one more win and 2 less losses of the Sabre Dogs, while 1 less win of the Big Sticks. This could have been more chaotic if the makeup of the league was a lot different. I mean, you could have made a case where Hastings could have been in the championship. Western Nebraska winning the first ever league championship, Badlands winning it last year. The Pioneers, they kind of fell off a little bit this year. They did not do as well as probably most people expected them to have performed. And then Fremont, this is a coming out party for Fremont, as they just slaughtered the rest of the Clark division, and they have made their way into one of the spots, or rather the Clark division spot in the Expedition League Championship Series, facing off with the Badlands Big Sticks, who, of course, as you probably guessed, winners of the Lewis division, just barely. The Sabre Dogs just so close. But had Hastings in the Lewis division, if Hastings was in there, this race could have been just absolutely fun to watch. But that wasn't the case. And thank goodness the Sabre Dogs only had one major opponent, them being the Big Sticks. The Big Sticks just a little bit better than the Sabre Dogs at this season, capping off with a record of 29-22, with the Sabre Dogs just finishing barely over 500 at 27-25. Hastings ended up 28-23. The Clark division representative in the championship series, the Fremont Moo, at 33-20. See what I mean by coming out party and that they slaughtered everything in their path? Heck, this team could have went 30-plus wins and less than 20 losses. That's how good they are. But enough chatter about these other teams. For the Sabre Dogs, they were in it the entire way through, and just that final week, if they took it all the way to the final week and only 2 teams, the winner from each division, because of the playoff format, had this been the original format with 4 teams, 2 in each division, if this was the original format, the Dogs would be in the postseason right now. The Dogs would be playing a semifinal matchup, would have had to go on the road to Astoria Field in Dickinson, North Dakota. But that's not the case this year. But let's take this on a positive note, people. If this was the original playoff format, the Dogs would be in the playoffs. To take it all the way to the final week of the season, be in the race, still playing meaningful baseball, this was a pretty darn good season for the Sabre Dogs. I mean, yes, we didn't make it to the championship series, or we didn't make it to the playoffs, however you want to look at it. They're both the same thing. This was still a pretty darn good season for the boys. They showed that they can compete with the likes of Badlands. Fremont gave them a little trouble kind of towards the end there, but the Sabre Dogs, they're up there. And just wait until next year, if we're back to that original format, there's no sleeping on this team. The Sabre Dogs are proving that they are a top-notch team in the Expedition League. Just that there are a few other teams just a little bit better than them. Showed it not only in the standings, but also on the field too. And that doesn't mean that the SaberDogs won't give each of these guys a run for their money. SaberDogs have won against Hastings. They've won games against Badlands. We've seen it firsthand. But like Coach Brock preached on earlier, this is all about developing the players, getting them ready. Because again, this is a league where they rent the players from their respective colleges, help them to develop, form a team game all in one, in hopes of making it to a playoff round and just quite possibly, a championship series too. This season, this was a good one for the Dogs. Under normal circumstances, they would have been in the playoffs. The Dogs taking it all the way as far as they could, showing off those traits that I mentioned earlier. Let's be proud of this team, because they certainly put on a show. Not just for the crowds, the fan entertainment, but also making it count when they needed it to. Of course, the last bit of the season didn't prove to be in their favor, but those were some tough matchups and patented with playoff implications against a good team like the Moo and the division rival Big Sticks. It was guaranteed to be a very close matchup with the Big Sticks, but Fremont proved to be a tough challenge. But for Souris Valley, they handled it well. For how long they took this against, let's not write off Badlands here. I know SaberDogs beat them on a few occasions, but let's not forget Badlands still won the Expedition League Championship last year. In Fremont, once again, the coming out party, they were just absolutely phenomenal this year. So for the SaberDogs to be doing this was by no means a bad year for them. Just a few tough breaks. Unfortunately, costed them a playoff spot, but it's going to happen with everyone pretty much. So I'll be proud of the SaberDogs for what they did this season. And now we look towards building for next season. That basically completes all of summer athletics going on in the Magic City. Let's just quickly preview what's going on for fall athletics. Of course, the NSIC and Division II NCAA canceling fall athletics for the Minot State Beavers and, of course, for all teams within the NSIC conference. And then suspending the winter athletics that kind of mix in there a little bit with the fall sports. Up through December 31st, they are being suspended. So all Minot State athletics through the end of December to New Year's Eve pretty much. There won't be any action in the Dome, at Herb Parker. They still have the bubble set up, which they're actually going to keep that up. There won't be anything going on, just any sort of sporting event at Minot State campus. It's a bummer, but let's hope we can have some better news coming out of the spring. But for going on to high school athletics, for Minot High, we just had the season opener. In fact, we have a lot of season openers that we have to get through real quick. Minot High quickly opening up the season for boys soccer, opening up the 2020 campaign at home versus the Dickinson Midgets, winning 2-0. Chris Long and Ezra Hagerot getting on the score sheet for your Magicians. I recently had a season preview with Coach Creighton Bachmeyer. He said it straight on here. The expectation certainly is at least a top 2 seed in the WDA. And I think they can pull it off. We've seen a lot of good soccer clubs that came out, whether it was at the Optimist or Dwayne Carlson, the team having made the switch to the Dwayne Carlson now that they installed turf over there. For Minot High soccer, heck, even just the city of Minot with the Soccer Association, they are very passionate for the sport. Minot High goes deep into soccer, and so the development programs around the city and just the Soccer Association in general, there's going to be a lot of success, with developing of players. Heck, you remember the story of Noah Schmidt going off to Florida to prepare for hopefully some big league soccer in his future. So soccer is no joke around here. So it is quite common to see youth teams, adult teams, and the Magicians too, and the Majettes to have some pretty good soccer clubs overall. And we, the fans and parents too, are just so lucky to be seeing it firsthand. The second game that the Magicians hosted in their second game of the season against the Bismarck Legacy Sabres didn't quite turn out to be what they had hoped for, but of course you're going to see a loss here and there, and then there are going to be teams. Don't be surprised, guys, that take a team like Legacy, for example. There may be, a surprise team in there that may be able to, pick up a win against Minot High, or even pick up a win against a few Bismarck teams or whatever. The thing is that don't be surprised with a few of these other schools that may be knocking on the door saying, hey, don't forget about us. And so with this game against the Sabres, that proved to be their matchup in their favor, winning it 2-1 over the Magicians. Cam Bolinski picking up the lone goal for Minot High. Moving on to Bishop Ryan for a little bit. We had some football action, some Friday Night Lights, football fun. Last night, Friday the 21st, was the first official day, or first official week of football games in the state of North Dakota for the high school level. Of course, Class Single A, 9-man, 11-man teams, all not at the AAA level. They all get a week head start because there's a lot more teams. The landscape of the lower divisions, there's so many teams to go around that they start a week early, whereas if you're looking at Class AAA, there's so many teams, there's so many schools there where they can just start, a week later, whereas the lower divisions, they have a lot more teams. Give them some more competition, maybe. Just, maybe an extra week. I mean, with non-conference games being canceled, I'm not sure how badly affected these small area schools and teams were. I can't say for sure because I don't see them as much as I should. But there's so many teams, like I said, in the landscape that, never hurts to give them an extra matchup or two, whatever. But for Bishop Ryan, the Lions, having made an appearance in the state championship game for Class Single A last year against Langdon area Edmore Munich, the Cardinals, and just the Cardinals last year were just too much to handle. But the Lions are back. Yes, it's probably on the back of their minds, and they may even use that as motivation for this upcoming season, where they have a redemption tour to go through. So the Lions are back for another season of Class Single A high school football. Their first game was on the road over in Dickinson to face the Dickinson Trinity Titans, and a last-minute safety by the Titans would prove to be the game winner for Dickinson Trinity, as the Lions fall 29-27. But let's not overlook this Lions team, because certainly they have the talent everywhere on all of the roster to make yet another run. And with the experience from last year's state title game, that will certainly help in competing for this year. Yes, that was a tough break and a tough first loss for the Lions, but just look at it this way. They were in it all the way. In fact, they were down by some, and then they led by some, and then Dickinson Trinity came back. I can't recall if it was tied at some point, but this team showed that they are here to play and not mess around. They certainly flashed talent and everything that they had going on for them last year. Just that one tough break, that safety at the end there. But other than that, there are plenty of other positive signs to look at for this team. Zach Hendrickson, 2 receiving touchdowns. Nicholas Sanders, 3 passing touchdowns. Logan Merck, touchdown and an interception. Jackson Feller, rushing touchdown. Probably had a bunch of more rushing yards and carries in there, Don't forget, this team is loaded and they have the potential to make it back to the state title game. Just that this tough break separated them from being 1-0 and now 0-1 to start the season. But I'm sure they will not let that define them and that they will rebound nicely, hopefully, and then that will be on next Saturday against Carrington at home with the MSU bubble still up, by the way. According to Ben Bard, Bishop Ryan will be playing at Nedros for their home games. Of course, there is one slight conflict with the Nedros team, so it will be next Saturday in the afternoon playing their first home game. Let's give out a quick summary for Minot High Tennis as they just got their season started today on Saturday. This is being recorded on the 22nd. They start off hot, winning all the singles and doubles, rounding out the score to be 9-0 over the Jamestown Blue Jays. That was their first matchup of the season and first home matchup, too, at the wonderful Hammond Park. Of course, Minot High and Bishop Ryan getting going with cross-country seasons as well. Quick note on Minot High Jets golf, as a team taking second in both of their meets so far, scoring 339 in the Jamestown Invite and 355 in the Bismarck High Invite. Both occasions where Bismarck Century won both meets. And ladies and gentlemen, we are just barely scratching the surface with an exciting fall sports season for high school. And so, Minot sports fans, thank you once again for catching another episode of the Minot Sports Podcast. And this is indeed the final summer series episode. We are going back to the regular schedule, the regular name of how each episode was originally done. Season 1 was last year, which was considered to be freshman year. We are now moving on to Season 2, which will be my sophomore year here at Minot State University. Just want to remind you guys once again, the Minot Sports Podcast is a production of KMSU TV and Radio, with shout-outs going to our in-house KMSU sponsors, Joshua Strong Photography and the MSU Red and Green. Josh is always doing a great job at his photography skills and continues to make the pledge every day to get better, while the MSU Red and Green newspaper is always keeping Minot State students informed of the top stories going on around MSU campus. Thank you guys once again, and thank you guys for all the support that we've been getting on YouTube. The viewership is going up. I can't thank you guys enough for that. It's just so wonderful to see the exposure we're getting, and that's all to you guys. Thank you so much. Once again, hope you guys have a nice day, and take care. I'll talk to you later.